Hi, my name is Dr. Susan Swim, Executive Director of Now We See a Person Institute, and I have two wonderful guests with me today that I will introduce in just a few minutes. But this is part of our lived experiences series that we're doing right now, where we're um, helping to capture the voices of those who've had lived experiences within the field of mental health, psychiatry. I guess there's all sorts of different words that we call this. Um, and the title for today is Psychotherapy, the Hazardous Cure. That was actually one of the first books that I had to read in my graduate program in the 80s. And it's very much real today as it was back then. And so I'm first going to introduce my colleague, Ashley. And Ashley's currently in Germany, joining us from afar. And Ashley works with us as a recovery coach and has been very influential in the prosperity of a lot of the people that we have come into contact with. So, some of the institute is a nonprofit research clinical institute with the main focus of using collaborative dialogical methodologies to help people who have not succeeded in traditional services, whether psychiatric or psychological, therapeutic in some way, and that they have stories, lived stories, to help inform both practitioners and consumers so that we can help this field prosper as well. So I want to introduce another wonderful guest that's coming to us from South Africa. And would you like to introduce yourself, Trudy?
Hi, Susan. Thank you. I'm Trudie. I am South African, amongst other things, and I have survived psychiatry and psychologist, and I live to tell the tale.
Yes, 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 yes. So I think that I'm just going to start with you if I can, and maybe you can tell us the story of how you came into um, having a lived experience.
Yeah, Susan, I come from a background of a lot of trauma, a lot of difficulties, and as a as a empathetic person. Um, I decided to pursue becoming a counselor. So that's what I've been doing for the past 30 years. Um, I love doing it. I love working with people. I love people. Um, and I really hurt with people when they hurt. I really care. So I had full faith in the helping profession of psychology and psychiatry for that matter as well. So with full confidence, I went to a psychologist about 5 years ago um, to help me work through the current and the past traumas that I experienced. Um, in the beginning, it did help. I felt I felt better. I felt I could take a load off and just spill my guts, and it was safe. I felt safe. And then, as I had severe anxiety, the focus became more on the anxiety, and I was urged to go on to antidepressants so that I could get to a therapeutic level. In other words, that she could handle me better and I would be calmer and more compliant, I think. That's what I think now. I didn't think so at that point. Um, I
So just
was,
if I could just
yeah,
stop you for a second, because, you know, it just kind of piqued my interest when you said that you needed to be on a therapeutic level of medication in order to do therapy. Is that what you were
that is
told?
what my psychologist told me, that she cannot continue working with me unless I take medication. And her words were, "You need to be on a therapeutic level." She called my husband in to help me get over that line and agreed to take medication. Um,
So, so if I'm understanding this correctly, can we have talked before this just to kind of make that public as well, so I know a little bit about your story. I also read about it in Mad in America, which is a wonderful organization, and I think all anybody listening to this should be aware of. But so so she brought your husband in to basically convince you that you needed to go on medication, or am I overstepping what I'm saying?
no, she absolutely did because I refused. All all while I was crying and performing and, um, being in complete panic. Not just about what I was talking about or what I was going through, but about the fact that she wanted to hospitalize me and put me on medication. Um, I said, no, I won't. It was a terrible conversation. And then she said, well, I said, I need to talk to my husband because, I need him. I need him with me because I feel powerless. I feel pressured. I feel pushed into a corner. So the poor man who loved me dearly, and um, he, of course, he jumped into his car and he came to sit by my side, and she told him very clearly that um, he needs to agree with her that this is the only way to help me. Now he's always been against um, psychologists, the field. He's not a fan. But he was so desperate for me to feel better, um, that he just said, "Well, honey, if this is what needs to happen, then this is what we need to do." Um, so he didn't know what he was agreeing to either, or what he was asking me to do. Um, but um, we were both in a position where, like, okay, what else? What else can I do? I need help. I need to feel better, and nothing is working. And um, this professional is telling me this is the only way. And the person I trusted was telling me this is the only way. And I'm not, this is no exaggeration. These were her words. Um, so,
Oh,
yeah,
so unless you went on medication, you had no other options.
yes, that is what she said. Um, so I was not in a place where I could think clearly because I was just sheer terror, terror of my own emotions and terror of not ever getting better, feeling better, that I just, gave in. Um, I started on the medication. It helped a little bit for in the beginning. Or actually, before it really kicked in, I did most of my talking through all my issues. And when it started to kick in, maybe what, 2 weeks, a month, I don't remember. Um, I just started becoming numb. There was no more, uh, deep feeling and deep crying anymore. So I thought, okay, maybe this is working. Maybe I was unreasonable. for resisting it so long. But even while I was taking it, I hated it. I hated the idea that there was a chemical in my bloodstream dictating how my brain was working and how my emotions were working. I hated it. Um, and every now and again, I would bring it up again when I went to see her. Um, and I would be just shut down immediately. And she told me that you wouldn't you wouldn't deny insulin from a diabetic, would you? So why would you do this to yourself? My argument at that stage, and it still is, what was first, the chicken or the egg? You know, I do not have, if there is an imbalance in my brain, which was never tested for, there were no scans or tests, which is a couple of questions, then why is it there? It's there if there's a lack of serotonin or dopamine or whatever the chemical might be, then it's imbalanced because of long-term stress or trauma. So you don't fix it by chemically introducing a substance into your brain and not allowing your brain to naturally process what's happened to you. That was my reasoning, but that was constantly rebutted. Um, and yeah, like she told me constantly that my perspective is wrong. My perspective is wrong. And especially on the medication. And then that line was drawn through all my experiences and how I saw it, which made me not better, but it made me doubt my own um, voice and my own reasoning even more. So, you want to hear some more?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I stopped seeing her because I just felt nothing's really changing. Then my anxiety started increasing. Um, I mean, even more than before the medication. Um, it got so bad that I had 3, 4, 5 panic attacks every single day. Um, I was barely coping. So, and I didn't want to go back on medication or on more medication. I didn't want to go see the psychiatrist because I didn't like her. I didn't like her authoritative way. I didn't like her. I didn't like her. And but eventually, just one day, I just said, "Oh, maybe I am wrong. Maybe there's really something really wrong with me, and I need more medication. Maybe I'm even worse than I thought I was. Um, maybe I'm even more broken than I thought I was." So I phoned and I found the office, the psychiatrist's office, and she immediately sent me a prescription for double my amount of medication, double my doses, as well as telling me I need to take a sedative 3 times a day. No, I did that one day, a sedative 3 times a day, because that was just put me in bed. There was no functioning there whatsoever. So that I didn't follow. Um, I talked to my psychologist about this again, uh, and she said, "Trudy, you need to train yourself that when you have anxiety, you take a pill. It is as simple as that. Remind yourself every time you have anxiety, you need to take a pill." And that did not sit well with me because here again, I felt like So I want to deal with it differently. I want to work through it. Um, I don't want to take a pill every time I'm anxious. I don't want to. I don't want to feel that zombie-like state. Um, so I never did that. And then
Do you
the
know,
beginning of
can you
mm,
tell us what you were taking or what they wanted you to take?
I was on paroxetine, which was the antidepressant.
And
20 milligrams.
what's the name for another name for that?
The
Do you know?
paroxetine is the active ingredient. It's probably uh, Fraxel. I don't know what it's called in the States.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And then Urbanol was the um, anxiety medication. Um, yeah, terrible stuff. Really terrible. It really makes you feel like you feel nothing, you know? Yeah. You just sit there like a spaced out zombie. So earlier this year, um, my dad died a couple of years ago, and things, there were a lot of things happening. So I was struggling again to deal with stuff. Um, I thought, okay, let me go back to my psychologist. I talked to her, and she told me, I got to go to the hospital. There's something wrong with you. Um, you need to,
Was there something that you said that alarmed her that she,
just that I was still very anxious. I was just very anxious. So her answer was, we need to put you in hospital so that we can observe you and adjust your medication.
so
So, mhm.
if I'm interrupting too much, you just tell me to stop because I just get so interested, for a lack of a better word, in what you're saying. And so, but so you had said that there were other things going on. Were those types of things also addressed, or was it more the symptoms that were being addressed?
I, I think the symptoms were overriding the story, um, because I was already classified as having a generalized anxiety disorder. That was my box. So any and all things that were happening to me were in that framework, were seen from within that framework, the way I responded to it. It must be because of your anxiety disorder that you are dealing with it in this way. And I believe that. I did. Um, because I really believe there was something really wrong with me. I could not cope like other people with life stuff. I could not. Um, so in the beginning of this year, I went to see her again. Um, she wanted to put me in the hospital. I went, but there was something changed. I started actually thinking for myself, I think. Um, I was there for one full day, and I was basically kind of observing what was happening to people around me, um, the way, what they said, how they acted, how scared they were of their psychologists and psychiatrists, scared, intimidated. Um,
Mhm.
I also had a confrontation with my psychiatrist, where uh, yeah, she just dismissed everything I was saying. She laughed at me. Um, the more I questioned her, the more she just put me down, and that just shocked me. I had still had this illusion that they must be right. They must really care and they must know what they're talking about. I cannot possibly know what I'm talking about. Um, and
Because of the box that you were
yeah,
in.
because I belong in the generalized anxiety disorder box. Um, and therefore, everything is invalid that I'm saying or feeling because that is the framework. Um, that is the diagnosis, that is me. Um, after that one day, I just snapped and I said, that's it. I didn't put up a fight. I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I just packed my bags, phoned my husband, did a courtesy call to my psychologist. Why? I don't know. I'm way too nice. Uh, phoned her to tell her I am leaving. I did not ask for permission or the blessing or anything. I just told her I am leaving. Um, the following week, I went to see her, um, and I was met with icy cold demeanor, and she told me her words were, "So what paranoid thoughts are you bringing into the room today?"
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm like, I um, I don't understand what you mean, and yeah, that was very hurtful. It was very hurtful. Um, there's some other things that she said that I can't recall right now because this is actually getting to me now. Mm, I questioned her again about the medication, and I said about the hospital. It's not working for me. It's not. And the next couple of days later, I stopped the medication. Well, I started tapering because I did my research that it was dangerous to go off straight away, and all the side effects. So I decided to stop. At this point in time, this has now been 2 months since well, not even, yeah, almost 2 months since I took my last pill. I still struggle with brain fog. Um, I stopped my job. I can't work. I cannot work. I cannot have conversations with people without being exhausted. After this conversation tonight, it'll probably take me a couple of hours to switch off and um, go to sleep. I don't socialize anymore. I do not have the energy. I don't have the mental energy. Um, uh, I've had to, what happened to me, and this is not I've had to, but what happened to me is that all the things that I thought I had processed just came back like a flood. And I had to feel all the pain again. I felt all the sadness over the last few months. It's been really hard. And then on top of that, and this is not to play the victim, this is just what happened to me. On top of that, I really feel betrayed by people I trusted. Um, I'm angry at myself that I did trust them. Um, I like to think of myself I'd like to think of myself as a discerning person who asks questions and things. And as far as my psychologist goes, I went on blind trust, trusting another human being with my heart,
Mhm.
and I really feel betrayed.
Mhm. So I am so sorry that these types of events happened. It I would like to say this is a rare story, but this is not a rare story that we listened to as we talked about before we started recording. And this is one of the reasons why we are doing the recordings, is for people to have more of an awareness. And so in 1982, or maybe it was 19, no, it's probably 1980, I guess, that I read the book, Psychotherapy, The Hazardous Cure. And it at that point in time, it was really before the biological narrative. So there was no biological narrative. So if you had symptoms that were from context, right? From childhood, from what was happening with you at that point in time, whether it was a loss of friends, or your husband had an affair, or you lost a job, all the harshness that life holds for people. And so therapy wasn't that long, that and surely if anyone went on medication, you were weaned off of it. It was not seen as being biological. It was not symptom based. It was based on from a more of a lived experience of trauma based. What on earth is happening right now that's causing you so much suffering? And so then you had a template, right, to go by. So even if we're severely abused as a child, that doesn't mean that that's why we're having the problems that we're having right now. You know, the person who's experiencing the suffering has a knowing of what's going on by talking about it. I'm talking about it with somebody that has time to care and to listen, and that sees you as a person and not a sickness. So what they were talking about then was a totally different thing, right? Because we didn't have a biological theory, but it was talking about that therapy can coerce you into thinking things about yourself that's not accurate. And it can change your life. It can change the life of your family. It can change the life of, if you're a partner. It can change so many things by the impression of someone that has a degree, whether that might be an MD or a PhD or a master's level or social work or etc. And so it talked about how people got better on a waiting list. So if people were suffering and they had anxiety or severe depression or whatever, being on, I don't know who did this, it'd been interesting to look this up, right? But who did the research? But it talked about how it was expectations of hope, right? That that people had that freed them up to where they could start looking at other options instead of boxes. So the boxes of that's anxiety disorder or bad childhood disorder or husband treats me bad disorder or whatever the disorders was. It was something that was capable of having a fluidity for options to occur and to bubble up and be embraced. And so, when I hear this, it's sad, it's unfortunate, and it's way too common and it's dangerous. And somewhere along the lines we have created this educational system for people in a helping profession to really not see people, to see diagnoses, to see, it used to be, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It used to be that PTSD was a safe diagnosis to give, right? Because it wasn't due to a mental illness deficiency. But now that's not true anymore either. It's like the moment and our colleague in India, Pratishka Swarma, talks about this, that the moment you enter into a therapy office, a psychiatrist's office, a social worker's office, a psychologist's office, you lose your self identity. And what can happen can be very consequential in very serious ways. And so, Ashley, I heard you, having, some reactions to this story, but I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought I would bring you into the conversation. So what were some of the thoughts that were going through your mind when you were listening to this?
Well, first of all, I thought it was awful that she just completely dismissed all of your emotions. You were like, I hear a lot of, oh, they labeled me as this and I was anxious and this symptom based conversation. But what happened to them sitting with you in your grief, or, talking about what was going on in your life? Because life is difficult. I'm sure you had good reason, like based off of the conversations we've had, you have good reason to be anxious, to feel these natural emotions that we go through as people, and you shouldn't sedate yourself because of these emotional states. And I'm sorry that they pushed you to be a zombie, that they refused to help you unless you were like half numb or half dead, because you're more subjective. It's sick. It's sick what this industry is doing to people, and that we're encouraged to numb ourselves and numb our emotional states and become a fraction of what we are, because people are meant to have emotions. We are not supposed to sit on a couch and stare at a wall because we're zombied out on substances. And when you said that she wanted to train you to take a pill every time you're anxious, first of all, you're not a dog. You're not an animal. You're not something that should be. I'm sorry, I would never talk to someone like that. I would never say, oh, when you feel this, you need to do X. Like, no. First of all, like, acknowledge why you're feeling anxious. I'm sorry that she told you to sedate yourself every time you're feeling a feeling. And second of all, that's how that's the same thought process that happens when people start abusing substances, because what happens when you no longer have a doctor feeding you pills? Then suddenly you have this thought in your head is, I need to take something to address this emotion, instead of actually talking about it or actually working through it. Because what gets us from like through the emotions is time, it's other people, it's conversations, it's doing something, it's movement, it's interconnection, it's not sedating yourself. That sedating yourself is like slowly poisoning yourself, and like you said, it's not um it's I saw you got up and I was like, oh, are you okay?
Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
she's just suggesting things, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but to sedate yourself it's a slow poisoning. Humans are meant to be emotional, and I'm sorry that you were told you were too much. What I see with you is a wonderful, creative, expressive soul that has voice and power. And I don't mean to overshare, but I love looking at your paintings and your perspective on the world. And I love looking at your use of color and how emotive it is. And I think that by being so tapped into your emotions and being able to have that freedom to express, you can express it in a beautiful manner. And I love the way that you express it. And thank you for sharing your voice and sharing your story, so that other people know that it's okay to feel things. It's okay to be human and have emotions, and it's what brings the muchness in life. It's what brings the color, it's the vividness, and all these medications and pills, they drown you out into nothing. And I understand this entirely, because it's no way to live. A life without color, without emotion, is nothing. And sometimes emotions are very, very difficult and hard to go through, but we need as other people. So I'm sorry that she didn't see you as a person.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. I really do. It's I didn't know that at the time, that I wasn't seen like that, but I think deep down I felt it. Um, and if it goes on year after year after year, you start, you really start believing that you are too much. I am a very intense person. I feel intensely, I feel deeply, and it should not be a problem.
It
My
shouldn't.
personality and my nature is not a problem or a disease. And if I react normally to, horrible stuff that happens, I should not be medicated or told my perspective is wrong. No, I should just be heard.
Mhm.
Just listen to me and spend the time. I will even pay you for your time. Well, I would have. Not anymore. I will never, ever go back to a psychologist ever again in my life.
Well,
Uh,
I'm just going to sneak in here for a second, because if you look at the licensing on psychologist or therapist or whatever, it is that your job is to discover pathology inside of somebody and to educate them on it. So the ideas it is someone that holds your heart, right, are gone. That was replaced with the biochemical model. And so I always say these things with my colleagues, that if that clinician likes you, then probably they're going to hold your heart for a while, right? But if your story is too unusual, if your symptoms seem too unusual, they're incapable of holding your heart. In fact, there's this push about transference and countertransference. So you don't get too close to that person, right? Because that will poison the therapeutic relationship. And so how long are we listening to somebody, guys? So when you go in and you have a story of demise and suffering, real suffering, how long is that story held for? What are we told to do with that? And if someone's having an intensity of symptoms because something happened, what do you do when you're a clinician? You have somebody that's behind that person. So you don't have that much time. So they call that high acuity, right? So if someone becomes high acuity, then we have to refer them out for medication, because somehow that medication is going to then help them fit into a 45 to 50-minute slot of time. In the meantime, like in that book in the 80s, the early 80s, maybe it was late 70s, I can't remember, Psychotherapy, the Hazardous Cure, you have people telling you that there's something wrong with you and that their goal is to psychoeducate you. And there's a lot of those theories around CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, that your thinking is wrong. So there's nothing that's celebrated that's right. Where are your strengths? Your strengths kind of like dissolve like sand. They're just not there anymore. And I think what happens is that you forget that there was a time of great strength and resiliency. So, Ashley, I don't know if you could comment on that.
Yes, I can. Um, so I think that I see great strength in you, and that the fact that you took your power back and said, no, I'm not going to let you sedate me anymore. I'm not going to let this happen anymore shows great strength. And even though it is very challenging to get out of this like mess of um, coming through what like the other end of getting off these antidepressants, because it's a very, very difficult process. But I see the resilience within you. You did the hardest part of the journey of like saying no.
No.
I'm
So actually, I'm
choosing
just going to trade this just a little bit. So when was, you also had a time that you said no. And I'm
yeah,
wondering if you
I
could share
did.
that too, because maybe that will help not only Trudy, but other people to know that your life can be reclaimed.
Yeah, I mean, I was on antidepressants for a really long time when I was younger. I was also labeled as like depressive, anxious, all kinds of things. I was actually labeled as a lost cause, which is whoa, like to think little 14-year-old Ashley was a lost cause. And the hardest part of it was like learning that I was past the medication. Like I didn't that medication is not a God that can fix everything, right? So that's why I was saying like that you got over the really, really hard part and it's difficult right now and but you're still going through and that's why I'm recognizing the strength and the resilience because I was also there and it's hard and now I'm like okay I live a life that's yes, you know what? I am really expressive and emotional and I'm really strange, but I think that I like that about myself. I think that it makes me a better artist, it makes me a better human, mm, it makes me who I am, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Like I don't think that I think that I should cry if someone dies. I really do think that I should cry if, like, when my grandma died, I couldn't do anything but paint portraits of her. And I think that that's, like, I mean, in the moment, it felt absolutely horrible. And God, I miss her so much. But I think that I wouldn't have learned how to do that. I wouldn't have learned how to like express something that I loved in a manner like that if I didn't go through that emotional journey, right? Like through some of our, at least with my life, I've seen like through some of our biggest hurdles, when you sit with that emotion, and although it feels horrible and you get like really stubborn and you're like, okay, I'm not going to do a thing that's going to hurt myself, but what else can I do? Then like this whole world of things come at you. Like, then it's like suddenly I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna study more. I'm gonna learn how to paint this and this is how I'm gonna make it through because the emotions pass, but it's like a wave of energy that you can learn to work with and put into your life in a way that can uplift others and yourself in the process. And that's true for me at least. And I think that everybody has a superpower and has a magic to them. Um and I'm not saying that you have to find a certain thing because it's all different for everybody. It's what feels right and like all the only parameter that I kind of try to stick by, at least like is just don't hurt yourself and others. That's me. It's like please as as long as you're happy, like not you're happy because like it's not good, but as long as you're physically safe and you're going through and you're not intentionally doing bad in the world, then nothing bad.
So I think that we accidentally lost Ashley, but I'm noticing the time and it's getting late where you're at. So, one of the things I just want to kind of end with, and then we can pick this up the next time. But when you said that you process so many things underneath the psychiatric drugs, and then I'm gonna let her back in now. Let's see. Okay, Ashley, we have you back in, but I'm just gonna wrap this up really quickly. So
Yes.
so one of the things I was just talking about that really struck me is when Trudy was saying that when she was on the psychiatric drugs, that she processed a lot of things, and then after the drugs were over, then they kind of came rushing back, the things that were processed. And that really didn't sit well with me. And I
Yeah.
think we can talk about that more in the future. So the purpose of medication is to get you to talk about all sorts of things that were very problematic in a very short period of time. And then, it just, geez. it just sounds like something that I wouldn't want to promote.
Mhm.
Everybody has their own journey when they're in um, when they're seeking help, and as you know, as a clinician, an educator, and a researcher, um, I don't know if it's our job to uncover every stone that someone has had in their life. I know in my own life that at my age, if I went into somebody and for whatever reasons, I've got too many years of stones to
Mhm.
go through. I don't know if that would be a helpful endeavor or not. But anyways, I'm going to stop the recording and then maybe we can just talk among ourselves. But thank you both so much for today. I am very I was going to say pleased that we were able to talk. Um I do think the information that was created is crucial. And thank you both. Until
Thank
next time.
you, Susan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ashley.